The changes outside have been tremendous. Everyone is a valuable prey with their head as the prize. Because human heads are very valuable now, worth a whole billion. Poor Agoo has been hiding all along. If you're hungry, just pick up trash to eat. Drink the dirty water by the roadside when you're thirsty. Even the police are after him. He has no idea what he did wrong. On this day, he saw a cosmetic surgery hospital. His life finally changed, holding all the family's assets. He hopes the doctor can help him get surgery to become a pig-headed person. But this doctor is a genius. He not only doesn't charge money, and I've long wanted to try turning a human head into a pig's head. However, this surgery has a significant drawback. After getting plastic surgery to look like a pig's head, most of the facial nerves have irreparable damage. Therefore, it is impossible to return to being human again. But Agoo still agreed without hesitation, as long as we no longer face this inhumane discrimination. A month later, Agoo also turned into a pig-headed man. Life begins to return to normal. After this ordeal, Agoo is more resourceful than before. He didn't let any of those who had bullied him get away. The two previous lackeys kept pleading with Agoo to spare them. But who can understand the pain of Agoo being locked in the laboratory? So he vented his anger on them even more ruthlessly. Agoo thought his hard days had finally come to an end. But he never expected. The world has begun to change again. That day in class, the teacher transformed back into a human head, and, according to reliable sources, soon everyone will gradually return to normal. Everyone was very excited to hear this news. Only Agoo broke out in a cold sweat right there, not long after. The people on the street are indeed slowly returning to normal. It seems this virus has appeared mysteriously. Once again, it ended inexplicably. Even Agoo's parents turned back into human heads. Looking at the pig-headed Agoo, he seemed very disdainful. Agoo recalled what the doctor had said to him. After turning into a pig's head, it's impossible to bring the head back. So, a little over a month later, everyone in the school turned back into a human head. Then Agoo was ostracized by the entire school again. Those people said again after school, just use firecrackers to blow up his pants. Agoo suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, because now in the whole world, only Agoo is left as the sole pig-head. Chapter 16. Ghost Fuel Incident. Have you heard about the shocking Liaoning ghost refueling incident? A man drove a ghostly car to the gas station late at night to refuel. The next day, the employees found Ming coins while counting the cash. The strangeness of the situation may exceed your understanding. Suggest to tag your friends to watch together. The story takes place in October 2017 in Chaoyang County, Liaoning Province. One night, Mei is working the night shift alone at a gas station, just as she entered the room to rest for a moment. Suddenly, a strong beam of car headlights flashed outside. She knew someone had come to refuel, so he hurriedly ran out. Asked the guest if they want 93 or 97. But that person did not answer Mei's words, just pointed at the 93 fuel pump. Mei instinctively glanced at the guest's car. But I find the shape of this car particularly strange. She had never seen a car shaped like a cube before. Moreover, that car gives off a very eerie and sinister feeling. Finally, Mei searched for a long time before finding the fuel inlet. At the same time, I wondered if this person had a problem with their mind, transforming the car into this monstrous appearance. One can imagine that the person who modified the car like this must have significant connections. Otherwise, I would definitely get fined by the traffic police. After finishing refueling, Mei informed that person about the oil prices. But that person still had a stern expression and said nothing. He took out a brand new 200 coin from his pocket and gave it to her. Han Mei felt that this person's expression was gloomy and their behavior was strange. He carefully took the money from her hand, then carefully checked the authenticity of the money. After repeated verification, there is no problem with the money. That strange person drove away in a square car. But on the second day, strange things happened. It was almost 8 in the morning. The day shift workers came to take over. The person on duty is counting the cash collected from last night according to the procedure, just as she counted to 1,000, but suddenly found 2 coins inside. She asked Han Mei if she was very busy last night and got deceived. 2 red banknotes were added to this cash. This statement startled Han Mei, because there weren't many people who came to refuel last night. Moreover, the money has all been carefully checked by her. The manager passing by happened to overhear their conversation, to avoid wronging Han Mei. Then I asked them to check last night's surveillance video. Suddenly, the strange square vehicle slowly approached. Then Han Mei appeared in front of the camera. It seems to be greeting the car owner. Everything is fueling up according to the normal procedure. Just as Han Mei was checking out, 2 banknotes suddenly appeared in her hand. But in the scene, she was always alone. There was no sign of that strange car owner at all. Han Mei seemed to be talking to the air from beginning to end. Seeing this, the manager suspected that this car was made of paper waste. These words nearly scared Han Mei into an early retirement, because she remembered seeing this car last night. The entire time, I didn't hear any sound from that car, as if emerging from the depths of the underworld. I finished watching the surveillance video. Everyone thinks that Han Mei encountered a ghost last night. From that day on, Han Mei has quit her job at the gas station. A man ran to the police station in the middle of the night to report a case. I said I killed someone in my dream. The reporter and the deceased are over 3,800 kilometers apart. The time of reporting the case and the time of the deceased's death, yet only 6 hours apart. The level of strangeness in this matter may exceed your understanding. Suggest to tag your friends to watch together. The story takes place in a hotel in Tengchong, Yunnan in 2009. On this day, while the waiter was cleaning, I found a handprint outside the door. Upon opening the door, I found a dead body lying in the room, and there is blood everywhere. The hotel quickly reported to the police. The police found a murder weapon, a fruit knife, at the scene, and found a footprint on the ground that did not belong to the deceased. The police quickly retrieved the surveillance footage from that day. The video is blurry, but I could vaguely see an adult man passing through the corridor, and there are obvious bloodstains on the body. But strangely, it did not appear again in the corner surveillance. It seems as if people have vanished into thin air. The police immediately issued a reward notice. But after a week, there was still no clue. A suspect is likely not a local. Meanwhile, a strange thing happened in Tianjin. One day, a person suddenly burst into the police station. The man, covered in blood, said he had killed someone. This startled the on-site police. A person introduced himself as Lai Zhongping, is a resident of this city. He said he went to bed around 10 p.m. last night, but later he had a strange dream. In his dream, he arrived at a strange tunnel. I felt dizzy and disoriented as soon as I entered the tunnel. Suddenly, a shadow appeared in front of him. A man picked up a knife and lunged at him. But Lai Zhongping noticed the man's movements, just like a slow-motion scene in a movie. Very dull. But for oneself, everything is normal. He effortlessly snatched the knife from the man's hand. The knife plunged toward the person in the dream who wanted to harm me. He repeatedly emphasized. Knowing this was a dream, he dared to act this way. When he saw that person fall before him, although I know it's in a dream. But I also panicked, because he never thought of killing. Even in dreams there is no me. Suddenly he was pulled into the tunnel by a strange force again. He said when he woke up again, I found myself covered in blood, wearing my clothes. The police officer listened to him finish this dream. Everyone thinks he might have a mental issue. They conducted visits to the neighbors near Lai Jianping. However, nothing unusual was found. The police then collected Lai Jianping's fingerprints. Just let him go back. But just 2 days later, the police received a murder case cooperation notice from Yunnan. The police officer discovered during the on-site evidence comparison that the fingerprint surprisingly matches that of a local citizen, and this person is the one who reported the case a couple of days ago, Lai Jianping, who claims to have killed in his dreams. The police compared the bloodstains on Lai Jianping's clothes again. The discovery truly belongs to the victim of the Yunnan murder case. The man in the corridor surveillance footage closely resembled Lai Jianping. The time of the murder and Lai Jianping's report was only 6 hours apart. However, the distance from Tianjin to Tengchong in Yunnan is 3,840 kilometers. This left the police officer feeling incredulous. Lai Jianping was quickly taken to the police station again. But this time he was brought back in handcuffs, refusing to be arrested. He became extremely agitated after learning he had killed someone, repeatedly emphasized that it was just a dream. Later, the police conducted a lie detector test on him, but the test results showed that he did not lie after 3 attempts, although the results of a lie detector test cannot be used as definitive evidence. But the result also led the case into an unsolvable predicament. Later, the police visited the airport that day, train station, bus station, but there are no car records from the day of the incident. It's impossible to drive over 3,800 kilometers in just 6 hours. Moreover, Lai Jianping neither had a car nor a driver's license. The police investigated the surveillance footage at Lai Jianping's home. That evening around 6 o'clock, Lai Jianping picked up his son. Once I got home, I didn't go out again. The victim of the Yunnan murder case. He died after returning to the hotel at 9:45 p.m. During these 3 hours, Lai Jianping could not possibly have arrived at the scene to commit the crime. All evidence fails to indicate that Lai Jianping is the murderer. So the tunnel in the dream, it became an important direction for the police to unravel the mystery. But this statement is hard for people to accept. Old Lai, who was nearby, said that this kind of thing has indeed happened before, and not just once. CCTVs closer to science once reported about a person flying in their dreams. Appeared 1,000 miles away overnight without any means of transportation. Someone abroad also appeared in a neighboring country within an hour. He claimed he fell into a funnel-shaped tunnel. After Lai Jianping had been detained for a month, they were ultimately released due to insufficient evidence. As for the tunnel in his dream, no one knows if it's real or not. Do you really think such tunnels exist? This is the scene between Haoan City in Xinai County, Henan, that shocked the internet in 1998. One day in October 1998, a small, thin monkey was chasing a man with a knife in the street. The injured man. By coincidence, I bumped into officer who had just gotten off work. At that moment, the man seemed to have found a savior. Someone is trying to kill me. Officer who, as pointed out by the man, but discovered a small, fierce-looking monkey with harmful nearsightedness. Officer who looked on with confusion, but still it immediately pounced towards the attacking monkey. But that monkey seemed to have a spirit and actually turned and ran away. Officer Who could only return helplessly. First, the injured man was taken to the hospital. However, Officer Who did not know that. The monkey that just escaped is now following the two of them. The gaze still revealed a fierce light. Captain Kin, upon hearing this matter, hurriedly arrived at the hospital to inquire about the reason for the incident. According to the injured man's account, I am a performer who entertains with monkeys. Just because the monkey I raised for several years misbehaved a few days ago. I hit him a few times myself. He harbored resentment and wanted to kill himself. However, the man had just said this. A furious knocking sound suddenly came from the window behind. The people inside turned their heads. It turns out to be that hurtful monkey. At this moment, that monkey actually resembled a human. With a resentful gaze, she fixed her eyes on the man in bed. When Captain Kin and the other person arrived at the window, the monkey jumped up and left first. Captain Kin felt very confused about this. Logically speaking, raising a monkey for several years, one should never kill their master just because they were hit a few times. I believe that monkey will come here tonight to commit murder again. Indeed, when the night is deep and quiet, the figure of the monkey appeared outside the window again. The monkey saw that only the injured man was lying on the bed inside the house, quickly raised the knife and lunged at the man. Unbeknownst to them, this was a trap set by Captain Kin and his partner. After catching the monkey, Captain Kin was surprised to find that the monkey ignored the two of them. Still glaring fiercely at the man playing with the monkey, he roared. Captain Kin expressed that, "If the man doesn't speak the truth again, I can only let this monkey go. After all, a monkey does not need to bear legal responsibility." After hearing Captain Kin's words, the man, looking terrified, was willing to tell the truth, just hoped to be honest and receive a lighter sentence. It turns out the man is really a monkey performer, but this hurtful monkey does not belong to me, but rather from a companion of his own. Two people perform monkey tricks together. Ming has two monkeys, but each time the earnings are less than a third of my companion's. So the man killed his companion out of hatred for Du Sheng, and this scene happened to be seen by the companion monkey. Then the monkey seemed to have a spirit of its own and started to hunt itself down. After the incident was resolved, people unanimously believe it was when the monkey's master was on his deathbed. The resentment possessed a monkey to take revenge. An 18-year-old girl strives to carry on her dying boyfriend's legacy. Unexpectedly, she and her boyfriend started doing a nucleic acid test on the lawn. It turns out that the boy in front of me has leukemia, often stands behind the girl covering her eyes. And the girl knew without guessing that it was that familiar face. As soon as he turned around, the boy kissed him. As feelings deepen, they become bolder, finally enjoying the last moments on the lawn. A few days later, the boy left the girl behind. By the time the girl stood before the grave again, she was nearly ready to give birth. It turns out she became pregnant after that time. The girl reminisces about the little moments spent with the boy. Tears are already streaming down her face. At that moment, someone suddenly covered her eyes with their hand. The girl screamed in fright. Looking back, I realized it was the boy's ghost. But the girl was not scared by the boy's ghost. Instead, they happily kissed each other like before. The next day, the girl arrived at the hospital and gave birth to the child. The girl returned to the boy's grave, holding the child in her arms. The adorable baby looked at Mama with pure joy, but the girl started to cry unknowingly. Suddenly, the baby covered the girl's eyes just like her dad. The girl was shocked by the baby's actions, looking at the baby's innocent cheeks. In this moment, she was completely warmed by the feeling of being a mother. The girl deeply kissed the treasure she left behind. Days pass one by one. On that day, an elderly woman had her eyes covered from behind. It turns out that little boy has grown up, but the girl has already grown old. As she grew older, the girl took a seat in a wheelchair, but fortunately her child accompanied her throughout this life. Do you know why banana trees can't be planted in the yard? The story takes place in Shanxitang Village, Nanjing County, Fujian. Many young people here go out to work. Only a few people stayed in the village to farm. Everyone gathered at the village entrance to play cards in their spare time. A disheveled beggar walked over from a distance, until he stepped forward to greet a few people. Everyone then realized that this beggar was Lai Zhongping from the village. Seeing his outfit, no one was surprised. He never hides the activities he engages in outside. Every time we talk about it, he proudly claims that city folks are easy to fool, wearing tattered clothes and pretending to be deaf and mute, kneeling in front of the bustling city center. A broken bowl lay in front. There will be an endless stream of money he took out from his pocket. At that time, even the village chief was reluctant to buy the beggar. Every time, others tease him by asking how he's doing out there. Lai Zhongbing just smiled widely. Then the head shook like a wave drum. It's tough out there. It's better to cultivate that 1 mu and 3 fen of land in the village. Everyone understands that he says he doesn't make money, but they must have made a lot of money outside. Behind his back, they were envious, jealous, and hateful towards Lai Zhongping. Chat with a few people for a while. Lai Zhongping picked up a few torn clothes from the table and said, "Let's tidy up before going home. Casually invite a few people for drinks." As soon as I got home, I took off the wig. He is the only one left in the house now. One person is full, and the whole family isn't hungry. The next morning, Lai Zhongbing gathered several demolition teams from the village. The villagers gathered around after hearing the commotion. A few years ago, Lai Zhongbing was known as a notorious slacker. Even eating is a problem. Now I actually have some spare money to build a new house. Lai Zhongbing said proudly that he built a good house. Just marry another wife. Lai Zhongbing has only been begging for a year. Now they've turned into wealthy tycoons. Instead, I've diligently built for over 10 years. Can't even cover the cost of a house. The onlookers felt quite puzzled. By evening, the house had nearly been torn down. I saw a banana tree in the yard causing a problem. Lai Zhongping had the demolition team take it down. But a few people exchanged glances and didn't make a move. Lai Zhongbing came here with his father when he was young, so I'm not particularly familiar with some customs and sayings. The demolition team explained it to him. If the banana tree is growing outside or in the field, it can be cut down at will. However, the banana trees generally planted in the yard are used to scare away ghosts. Upon hearing this, Lai Zhongbing's shiny bald head set off an uproar. If this banana tree is a spirit, isn't that a roundabout way of saying there's a ghost in his house? Lai Zhongbing's expression grew increasingly grim. The others also stepped forward to agree that the tree should not be cut down. Seeing this, Lai Zhongbing angrily drove the few people out. In the evening, I grabbed a few bottles of wine, looking for my late father's old friend, Lao Zhang, to have a drink. At the dinner table, I complained to Lao Zhang about the demolition team. Lao Zhang filled his glass to the brim. Advise him not to be angry. There is indeed a saying about planting banana trees in the yard. Old Zhang sighed. Ask him if he still remembers how his father died. Lai Zhongbing was taken aback. Everyone in the village knows that when he was a child, father died suddenly from a heart attack. It turns out that old Zhang and Lai Zhangping's father were comrades in arms. Later, the family of three struggled to develop back in their hometown. So I went to seek refuge with old Zhang. After moving here, I bought this courtyard. One year, my mother wanted to grow some vegetables in the backyard. Let Lai Zhangping's father chop down the banana tree in the backyard. Before long, I heard my father scream from the backyard. Lai Zhangping wanted to go forward to see what was wrong with his father, but was stopped by the neighbor. Later, I only heard my mother tell him that my father died suddenly of a heart attack. Lao Zhang picked up a glass of wine. They said that Lai Zhangping was young at that time, so they deceived him. In fact, his father died from fright, and the cause of death was particularly terrifying. But no one knew what had scared him to death. Lao Zhang continued to tell Lai Zhangping about the history of this house. The original man often abused his wife at home, and the strikes were heavy-handed. Once I accidentally killed my wife without holding back, but no one knows where he buried his wife. Later, the man inexplicably went crazy. When meeting someone, they say there are ghosts. When Lai Zhangping's father came to visit the house, there is a banana tree in the backyard, because it's cheap. Later, they bought the house. Although at that time, old Zheng strongly advised against buying this property. But Lai Zhangping's father said that his iron casting was a life and death misfortune. Lai Zhangping, tipsy from drinking with old Zheng until midnight, staggered home. He looked at the banana tree with resentment. Pointing at the banana tree, he cursed loudly. "If you have the ability, go find your man. Why do you want to harm my father?" After speaking, he took half a jug of gasoline, poured onto that banana tree. "Don't light a fire at all." Then a piercing howl came from the banana tree. I saw a woman struggling desperately in the fire. As for what happened later, Lai Zhangping only remembers fainting. When I woke up again, the banana tree had already been completely burned. Everyone began to advise Lai Zhangping to build the house elsewhere. Lai Zhangping is just as good at casting iron as his father. They stubbornly built the house. But at least we have been safe and sound all along. Lai Zhangping always came back wearing tattered clothes, still speaking the same words. People in the city are easily fooled. Chapter 18. The Beatty Scene at Midnight. Have you heard how chaotic the medical school is? I once witnessed a deceased newborn in the dormitory bathroom. These are the years I spent studying nursing at the medical school. At that time, the school's accommodation conditions were quite poor. That night, after classmate Zio Huey fell asleep, she kept having nightmares. She felt something pressing down on her foot. But no matter what, the eyes just can't open. Can only squint into a narrow slit. But she saw a baby crawling on her. Zio Huey found it very difficult to breathe at that moment. She only opened her eyes when her classmate called her to get up at dawn. At first, it just felt like a nightmare. I felt a pain in my neck right after getting up. It felt like something was pressing on her neck. Zio Huey's entire body was bent. I accompanied her to the school infirmary. The doctor believes Zio Huey just slept in an awkward position at night. So she applied a membrane and then put on a medicated plaster. Little did they know there was no improvement throughout the morning. Zio Huey cried and said she dreamed about a baby crawling onto her. I can also feel something sitting on my neck. The people in the dormitory began to discuss. A classmate said that one night he went to the restroom. I also saw a baby crawling out of the toilet, and he smiled at her. Other classmates also mentioned hearing rumors. A few years ago, one night, a piercing scream suddenly echoed from the bathroom in the hallway. Many students got up to check what was happening. They found a girl sitting in a pit. The girl's pajamas are covered in blood. There is a dead baby in the pit. After the girl was sent to the hospital by the school, she dropped out. Since then, many classmates have said that there is a baby in this dormitory building. The classmates in the dormitory were discussing animatedly. Hearing this, Zio Huey couldn't help but tremble. At this moment, a classmate suggested that Principal Lai seemed to understand this area. Otherwise, let's go find him and see. I helped Zio Huey to find Principal Lai. Said everything again. Principal Lai suddenly shouted at Zio Huey, "Get out of here!" Zio Huey instantly felt a lightness on her shoulder. But Principal Lai's expression was quite grim. They didn't explain anything to us either. Let's go back and get some rest. Later, I overheard classmates from the same grade discussing, when referring to Principal Lai or the teacher, the relationship with that girl who dropped out is very complicated. This is a folk story that took place in Henan. It is said that after a person dies, one needs to find a rooster that is 3 years old. And the purpose of this chicken is to guide the souls of the deceased to the Yellow Springs. The bizarre and strange nature of the story may exceed your imagination. Suggest to tag your friends to watch together. The events took place in 2010 in Zikon Township, Jiazhuo City, Henan. On this day, the villager Lai Zhangping's father passed away. The old man is 73 years old. Unable to overcome the first hurdle in life, Master Lin in charge of the funeral told Lai Zhangping to prepare a hidden soul chicken. But the Yin Huan chicken needs to find a rooster that is 3 years old. Lai Zhangping searched the village for a long time, but couldn't find it. Later, I heard that the family of the head courier in our village had some. Lai Zhangping hurriedly went out to buy chicken. He explained to the messenger after arriving. The moment the head was delivered, the expression changed immediately. Lai Zhangping saw the rooster through the crack in the door. The proud rooster, Xinjiu Jiu, struts confidently. Even the chickens are standing tall. I heard you can buy his family's chicken to use for the hidden soul chicken. At that time, I shook my head in refusal. Later, Lai Zhangping directly offered a high price of 500 yuan. Once the price is right, sending someone's head is done. They pretended to be in a difficult situation and nodded slightly. The funeral proceeded smoothly. Lai Zhangping is walking at the front of the line, holding a big rooster. The entire team walked towards the graveyard amidst cries. After finishing the burial, Master Lin came to inform Lai Zhangping, "It's time to kill the chicken and send the old man on his way." At that moment, Lai Zhangping looked to the side and was stunned. The big rooster tied under the tree has vanished without a trace. Master Lin immediately became serious upon hearing this. If this hidden soul chicken does not die, the chicken's soul can't leave. Then the old man's spirit will always follow the big rooster. In the end, they may become restless spirits. Qian watched as the chicken ran away. Everyone can't just roam the mountains looking for a chicken. But the Lai family doesn't care. Master Lin didn't have much to say either. Unexpectedly, that very night, a strange incident occurred at Song Rentu's chicken shop. Not long after Song Ren's head hit the pillow at night, suddenly a strange noise came from the yard. So he turned around the yard with a flashlight, and his wife ran out after him. When the two arrived at the chicken coop, instantly a sense of joy surged in my heart. I didn't expect that big rooster to come back. Song Rentu felt overjoyed, but he knew this chicken couldn't stay. We can't let Lai Zhangping find out. So he hurriedly called his wife to help catch the chickens, thinking of going to the market early tomorrow to sell. But he shouted several times. His wife never reacted at all. Song Rentu also sensed that something was off at this moment. Suddenly, his wife pushed him aside and charged forward. At this moment, his wife's eyes were hollow and lifeless, yet full of power. It felt as if he had become a different person. He walked a few steps to the chicken coop. Reach out and grab that big rooster. It's strange to say, the usually agile rooster, at that moment he was motionless, caught firmly in his wife's grasp. A terrifying scene unfolded immediately after. His wife effortlessly tore the big rooster in half with her bare hands. This completely startled Song Ren's head and nearby lights. His wife, covered in blood, looked like a demon. Until a little while later, his wife suddenly collapsed to the ground as if she were completely drained. Meanwhile, Song Rentu seemed to see the figure of an old man drifting away from his wife, and that rooster also turned into a blurred shadow, carrying the elderly person towards the west wall of their home, finally disappeared into the wall's corner. After seeing those two shadows disappear, Song Ren finally reacted. Hastily rushed to help my wife, who had collapsed on the ground. Later, the elders said it was Laileitu possessing him. Killed the hidden soul chicken with his hand. This way, the soul can be reborn with the rooster. The man in front of me is a Bailayan Jayo follower. This person's situation is strange and unpredictable. That day, he instructed his disciples to keep an eye on the two pots of water inside the house. Then they mysteriously stepped outside. The disciple looked at the two bowls locked together with great curiosity. So he stepped forward and secretly lifted it. Inside was filled with more than half a basin of water. There was a small boat made of straw on top. The apprentice found it amusing and reached out to play with it. Unexpectedly, not long after, the master returned, drenched and furious. Fooling around in the small boat nearly got me drowned. Once again, he let his disciple watch over a lamp. In the end, the disciple was extinguished. The master returned and was furious. It is said that the disciple caused him to lose sight of the path. Almost didn't make it back. The disciple held a grudge after being beaten. He got involved with one of his master's concubines. The master, upon knowing, did not expose the two, but secretly applied medicine to the snacks that the concubine often ate. The next day, after the two unsuspecting individuals consumed it, I actually turned into a fat pig. Next, the master directly called for the butcher. Butcher both pigs. Some disciples disapproved of their master's behavior. So the truth was told to the parents of the murdered disciple. Then the disciple's parents directly reported it to the authorities. Tell master that several lives have been lost due to negligence. The government has long wanted to capture him, so they dispatched a large number of officials and soldiers to capture him. In the end, he was arrested along with his wife and children. Can we go back? As the soldiers passed through a dense forest, a low growl suddenly echoed from deep within the forest. Immediately, a gigantic monster emerged from within. The monster stood about 5 or 6 jang tall and had 2 enormous tusks. The officers and soldiers were so frightened that they retreated repeatedly, none daring to step forward. Then the master in the car expressed, "My own wife can subdue monsters." The helpless officials had no choice but to release his wife. Unexpectedly, the monster grabbed the woman directly, stuffed it into his mouth, swallowed it without even chewing. The master then said again, "Let my son go out. Once he's full, he won't bother you anymore." After the officials released his son, the monster swallowed it. Finally, the master said he could have a showdown with the monster. The officials and soldiers had long been frightened. Only then can the master be released as well. The master charged directly towards the monster. As soon as he arrived in front of the monster, he was caught red-handed. Then he swallowed his master as well. After doing all this, the monster seemed to be satiated, turned around and left directly. The soldiers were terrified and collapsed to the ground. The authorities believed that this person was already dead. Then there was no further investigation. Little did they know, a few years later, someone actually saw the master on the street. It turns out their family only faked their deaths. As for whether the monster is something he raised or an illusion, then it remains unknown. It is said that dogs can protect homes and ward off evil. Among them, the black dog and the yellow dog are the most extraordinary. But have you ever seen a dog that can help its master drive away ghosts? The strangeness of the story may exceed your imagination. Cowardly friends, please squat in the toilet and watch slowly. It happened in the summer of 2009. At that time, I was still in school. That summer vacation, my parents were busy with work. Just send me to my grandpa's house in the countryside. Life in the countryside is very pleasant, without the noise and busyness of the city. It's either crazy playing with friends every day or sleeping in. Life is quite enjoyable. But during that time I encountered something strange. That means I've been haunted by a ghost. This is something I have to blame myself for. At that time I was still young and didn't understand. Once I was playing with the kids from the village. A few people are unaware of their own limits. He clumsily ran to the western side of the village to play hide and seek in the chaotic graveyard. In the midst of the chase, you stepped on quite a few grave mounds. From that day on, my nightmare has begun. After that day, as soon as I fall asleep, I arrive at a place. I don't know where that is. I only know that everything around is pitch black. And every time they would see an extraordinarily tall city tower, just like in those historical drama series, although it felt strange in my heart. But my body always involuntarily walks in. Inside is an old and dilapidated town, although there is not a single person on the street. But there are some things drifting around me. Every time I see them, I know I've fallen into the same dream again. This nightmare has lasted for 4 whole days. I feel very anxious in my dreams. At the slightest provocation, it's like a duck in a panic. But I'm not familiar with my surroundings at all. Can only run wildly in the streets. I don't know where I will ultimately escape to. Grandpa said this is all because I disturbed others' graves. And also take me to the town tomorrow morning to find someone who understands. But I feel like I can't make it to tomorrow. If this goes on, I feel like I'll either die from fright or go insane. But when those things caught me, I just woke up. Every day I wake up in extreme fear. I'm afraid to sleep again, because as long as I fall asleep, that nightmare will continue. So every time I wake up for a moment, I always feel grateful in my heart that it's good to be alive. The body craved the warmth of the sunlight outside. I don't know if it's because the dream is too eerie. As soon as I see the sunlight, it feels particularly dazzling. But the feeling of sunlight on my skin is just too wonderful. Warmed all my cold limbs. At that time, Grandpa's house had a big yellow dog. The yellow dog is named Dahuang. The character is very gentle. Usually, they don't bark or disturb the bell, and Dahuang is very close to me. Every time we meet, they come up to me excitedly. But that day, I don't know what happened. He immediately glared at me with a fierce look, and barked loudly at me. Dahuang is really close to me usually. Never has anyone been this harsh with me like today. It seems like he could pounce on me at any moment. His fierce appearance made me instinctively take a few steps back. But Dahuang watched me take a step back and became more aggressive in his shouting. It was about to pounce. I am very scared. After shouting loudly, he turned and ran. But how could I with 2 legs possibly run faster than someone with 4 legs? I was caught up by him after just running a few steps. In the blink of an eye, I was knocked to the ground by Da Huang, looking at his gritted teeth so close. I was so scared that I almost cried. Just when I thought I was going to be bitten by Da Huang, suddenly Da Huang turned his head to look elsewhere. Immediately after that, Da Huang face shouted and chased in that direction. I lay on the ground shaken, watching the figure of Da Huang chasing into the distance. I don't know what exactly happened, but unexpectedly, after being frightened this time, my surprise has actually improved a lot. No longer having that terrifying nightmare at night. Grandpa said it was Da Huang who saved me, but I was still young back then. I just can't understand the meaning of this sentence. But looking into Da Huang's eyes filled with affection for me, I believe what Grandpa said is true. Perhaps that day it wasn't me who was Big Yellow, but rather something behind me. Episode 22. Emotions are illusions. Logic is reality. The girl drew a sharp dagger. In a crazed state, she attempted to kill her boyfriend. The boyfriend was stabbed to death on the spot during the entanglement. To cover up the crime, the girl buried him in the field of dandelions. A month later, someone who looked just like my boyfriend appeared. Not only are their heights, appearances, and voices identical, even the strands of hair are identical. The scene before the girl was simply unbelievable, because her boyfriend Angie was killed and buried by her own hands. How could someone suddenly come back to life? But if not, how should the man in front of me explain? It's just strange that Angie couldn't remember anything during the police interrogation. Even she wasn't quite clear about being a public servant. But facing my beloved boyfriend, the girl couldn't help but call out his name. Angie, however, explained with a silly smile, "I'm sorry. I really can't remember." Hearing this response, the girl fell silent, but instead left here after saying goodbye to the police. Then they rushed back to the dandelion field. The dandelions across the mountains are still so beautiful, but the girl had no intention of appreciating it at all, but went straight to the place where her boyfriend was buried. The girl searched for a long time, but couldn't find the place, although the girl was filled with confusion. But that night she still found Angie, because she has come to understand. Decided to bring Angie home with me. She directly stepped forward and grabbed Angie's hand. Meeting Angie, there was no resistance. This made her more convinced that this was an opportunity granted by the heavens to bring Angie back to my side, even to forget the bad memories of the past. The girl moved to another city with Angie. Until this day, the two of them strolled through the food street as sweetly as usual. Along the way, Angie said she would go buy some barbecue first. The girl wanted to buy a cup of juice. But when she arrived at the juice shop, what unfolded before her left her completely stunned. Suddenly, another Angie appeared in the juice shop. The girl stared blankly at the man in front of her. To confirm the man's identity, she instinctively called out to Angie, but this man showed no reaction at all. At this moment, the waitress nearby also noticed something was off with the girl, so he introduced himself to the girl. Xiao Zhai arrived half a month ago. At that time, she remembered nothing. It was just that the boss confirmed her hand just in time, which is why she was allowed to stay and work. Then he asked the girl if she was her friend. But at this moment, the girl is already in a state of confusion. She couldn't understand why both of them had appeared a month ago. Why is it all about amnesia? The various strange occurrences began to make the girl increasingly anxious, until I saw a moment posted by Angie's younger sister. It clearly shows that she and Angie are helping Grandma's assistant. A group photo of several people was also attached. The girl was completely panicked upon seeing this. Angie is right here with me. How could he be with her younger sister? But what followed only made the girl more and more alarmed. Because of the information shown in Angie's sister's social media posts, Angie seems to have never left their home. At this moment, the girl felt like her mind was about to split apart. He even secretly ran to Angie's house to investigate. I really saw another Angie. The girl walked with a heart full of unease. She also doesn't know why things turned out this way. It seems that after Angie passed away, everything started to become strange. At that moment, the investigating officer suddenly approached the girl again, and directly get straight to the point with her. Since Angie went missing last time, they have now discovered 5 Angie. The girl was instantly shocked. This news was truly terrifying for her, but the police immediately confirmed the 5. 4 of them are in this province, and 1 is in the neighboring province. And there are several unresolved cases still under investigation. They all share the same characteristic of looking exactly alike. They just don't know their own past. I don't even know where I am. Hearing this, the girl was already sweating profusely. The police officer saw the girl's expression. I know there must be many hidden truths within. So I immediately pressed her for the truth of the matter. Under the inner unease and the officer's authority, the girl ultimately spoke honestly about what had happened. But strangely, the police could not find the burial site mentioned by the girl based on the clues. Not a trace was left. In the end, I could only return empty-handed. And because there is no evidence, the police had no choice but to release the girl without charges. When the girl returned home, but found Angie painting the walls at home, a warm scene made the girl feel very cozy. So I simply stopped thinking too much. Decide to live well together with Angie. Little did I expect. 6 months later, Angie suddenly passed away due to an illness. At the same time, all the Angie also died. The girl buried Angie in the field of dandelions on the hillside. But when she arrived to pay her respects to Angie, she discovered that the place where Angie was buried unexpectedly grew a large dandelion. At this moment, the girl seemed to understand something, because at this moment her gaze fell upon. Each of those dandelion seeds is a little Angie. This is a strange incident that took place in Sichuan. 3 men came to the ancient temple in search of treasure, unintentionally angered the statue of the Buddha in the temple. The next day, all 3 of them died in the temple. The level of strangeness may exceed your imagination. Suggest to tag your friends to watch together. The story begins in the 1990s. Chonglong Mountain in Nijiang, Sichuan. In a valley by the river, there is an ancient temple whose existence is unknown for how long. Because it is a place rarely visited, there is usually no incense burning. Moreover, the deity enshrined inside is neither Buddha nor Guanyin. Instead, it was an unknown, malevolent statue of a Buddha. There is a man named Lai Zhongping in the ancient temple. I kept sweeping the floor inside. Almost never goes down the mountain except for necessary purchases. Someone outside said that the reason he stayed there, it's because there's treasure in the ancient temple. Some people with ulterior motives have come to seek me out. However, nothing was found. Over time, no one became interested in this place. But suddenly, one day, 3 men walked in front of the temple gate. The man in charge said to Lai Zhongping, "They got lost while playing in the mountains. I want to borrow a night in the temple." They led the 3 people into the temple. After the 3 of them walked in, they didn't want to. There was no rush to take a break. Instead, they started looking around the temple. Lai Zhongping thought that since they were just having fun, perhaps curious about the temple. Soon the sky darkened. There are no electric lights in the temple. Lai Zhongping was worried that the three people wouldn't adapt, so prepare to send a flashlight over. It's much more convenient to get up at night to use the bathroom. As Lai Zhongping was about to open the guest room, a wooden stick suddenly struck him hard on the back of the head. In the moment of fading away, Lai Zhongping saw that the ones who had attacked him were the three people who had come to stay today. When Lai Zhongping woke up again, already tightly bound to the pillar of the great hall, "I kindly took you in. How can you do this? Stop talking nonsense to me. Where is the treasure in the temple? Hurry up and tell us. This broken temple has no treasures. Don't listen to those people spreading rumors." What I responded to him was a heavy punch. "You don't want to say, do you? Then I'll hit you as you said." After speaking, each of the three struck Lai Zhongping with a punch. He was tormented for over 2 hours. But Lai Zhongping still insisted that there were no treasures in the temple. This time, they completely enraged the three of them. I planned to kill Lai Zhongping directly. At this critical moment, Lai Zhongping seems to be behind the three. Suddenly saw a tall figure, upon closer inspection. That was actually the Buddha statue I had worshipped for 20 years. At this moment, Lai Zhongping could no longer hold on. Once again, I fell into a coma. This time, Lai Zhongping didn't know how long he had been unconscious. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the bodies of the three people, and everyone's fatal flaw is the same. All were pierced through with a big hole. It's just the location of the wounds that is different. Lai Zhongping recalled the terrifying Buddha statue he had seen just before losing consciousness. So I looked curiously and with doubt towards the direction of the Buddha statue. The fierce Buddha statue still looked the same as before. The demon-slaying staff in hand is already stained with blood. Lai Zhongping instantly understood the situation. I was saved by the Buddha statue. From that day on, Lai Zhongping has stayed in the temple for over 20 years. He only felt relieved to leave when the people from the Cultural Relics Bureau arrived. It is said that later, the relevant departments wanted to turn the ancient temple into a tourist area. However, a pile of gold, silver, and jewels was found at the base of the Buddha statue. This is the only ghost delivery incident recognized by the Hong Kong government at a tea restaurant. 4 horse friends had already passed away more than 10 days ago. But every day, he would call the tea restaurant to order the same 4-person meal. Strangely, each time they would settle the bill with Ming coins. But the delivery guy just can't seem to tell. It wasn't until later, when the police were called, that the chilling truth was revealed. This is the shocking ghost delivery incident at a Hong Kong Cha Chan Teng in 1989. At that time, all 118 media outlets in Hong Kong reported on it. The English book has already testified in the comments section. Dog head or AIT, the honest person is respectable. The incident took place in the North District of the New Territories in December. There is an old-fashioned tea restaurant called Ko Yong Jai. One day, the shop received a phone call for an order. The young man quickly noted down the address and started delivering the food. Soon arrived at the delivery address of Zixiu Garden. Then the young man rang the doorbell, but half a day passed without a reply. Moreover, there were many advertisements scattered everywhere at the entrance. It seems that no one has lived here for a long time. After that, the young man pressed for another 10 minutes, but there was still no response. Just as the young man thought he had the wrong address and was about to leave, suddenly it opened with a click. You can hear someone at the door unlocking the security chain. Then a small crack in the door opened. It's pitch black inside, and I have no idea what's going on. I only heard a low, hoarse voice coming through. Let the young man put the takeout at the door, then handed over a banknote to settle the bill. and that person hid behind the door as if they were afraid of being seen. This strange behavior made the young man feel very puzzled. He held the banknote in his hand and looked at it more than 20 times. Only after confirming there were no issues did he leave, filled with doubts. Little did I expect that night. The boss unexpectedly found a Ming coin while counting the income. This made him very angry. He unleashed a torrent of insults at the clerk. Then he threw the Ming coin into the wastepaper basket. The next day, the customer from Zixiu Garden called promptly. The result is still the same as last time. Money was passed through the crack of the door. Have the delivery person leave it at the door. Sure enough, that night the boss found the Ming currency while counting cash. He was instantly furious. Who did it, after all? Am I an idiot? The delivery person sees the boss with hopeful eyes. He expressed his speculation. It may be related to the person from Zixiu Garden, although Wenyim boss felt it was somewhat unbelievable, but still decided to see it for myself. The next day, Zixiu Garden indeed ordered the same fast food again. Money was passed through the crack in the door. The boss carefully checked the money more than 30 times. Only after finding no abnormalities did I place the takeout at the door. Then he returned to the store, put the money collected from Zixiu Garden aside. Little did I expect while counting cash at night. The scene before him instantly frightened him, leaving his hands and feet numb. The money collected from Zixiu Garden has unexpectedly turned back into Ming currency. He could no longer sit still. Lima trembled and held on tightly. The police quickly arrived at Zixiu Garden. After knocking on the door for a long time, there was no response. With no other option, the police could only choose to break down the door. But what they saw upon entering made everyone's hair stand on end. Only the 4 people playing mahjong remained, already dead and worried. It seems the time of death was at least 10 days ago. At the same time, analyze the traces at the scene. A few people likely died from carbon monoxide poisoning while trying to warm themselves by a coal stove. It's just that these few people usually never associate with others. That's why it hasn't been discovered. But strangely, the room was filled with scattered empty food containers. But these people had clearly died long ago. So who eats this fast food? However, the outcome of the subsequent events was even more astonishing, because they found recently consumed food in their stomachs, and that food was the fast food they ordered. And the police also received the nameplate from the restaurant owner. Fingerprints of several deceased individuals were found. This quickly became an unsolved mystery reported by major media outlets. It also became the only publicly acknowledged paranormal case by the Hong Kong police in history. Later, a significant event unfolded. Because Zixiu Garden is in a place that rarely sees sunlight and is extremely harsh, the deceased's spirit clings to the body, thinking they are still alive. So every day I repeat the things I did in life. This girl has an amazing figure. Tian Tian likes to find a boyfriend who weighs 500 pounds. Even her sister has the same taste. And every day I have to cook a lot of meat for my boyfriend. Everyone quickly love your unlucky friend. Otherwise, you'll end up like this fat person. It turns out that in this world, the price of pork has risen to $400 due to the global impact of the swine fever virus. Pork supply continues to be in short supply. The World Health Organization is also unable to effectively control the virus. Ordinary people have to enter a lottery to buy pork. Even so, pork is still hard to come by at £1. But there was a pork shop that lacked a bustling crowd. The reporter interviewed the butcher shop owner. "Why are pigs all over the country getting sick? Why are the pigs here so healthy?" The butcher happily replied, because they treat pigs like lovers. That's why they are so healthy. And his 3 model daughters became the pride of the butcher's shop. Seeing the boss's 3 daughters, both journalists were also entranced. This is simply 3 fairies descending to the mortal world. A few days later, the reporter conducted a special interview with his 3 daughters. The eldest daughter picked up a plate of her homemade pork dish. Old journalist delivers a head, and even personally delivered the pork to the recipient's mouth. She blushed and said, "I've always had a crush on boys who take photos." Suddenly, the face of the person who was about to lose their head turned red. Ermei and Sanmei also picked up the pork-flavored noodles. Ermei blew gently into Zhang Ping's ear. Lai Zhangping felt a tickle in his heart. By evening, the 3 sisters set off with the head they were delivering. Only Lai Zhangping was left to go home. Soon, Song Ren too began dating his eldest daughter. Moreover, sending heads will receive love electric every day. Just one meal prepared 9 dishes. But it wasn't long before sending someone's head shows unbearable hunger. 1 month later, the weight of the person being sent is beginning to rise continuously. But the more you give, the fatter it gets. The eldest daughter expressed that she liked it more and more. The more people I send off, the more I consume each day. No signs of stopping at all. 2 months later, the head offered had already turned into a 500-pound fat man. But sending people to their doom still keeps eating. Until one day someone suddenly went missing. The police found the eldest daughter. The eldest daughter suddenly broke up with him a few days before sending him off. Said they want to see the outside world. Then I didn't know where he went. Lai Zhangping felt very strange. Ming usually can't move a few steps without getting eliminated. How is it possible to travel alone? At that moment, the eldest daughter took the initiative to hold Lai Zhangping's hand, crying to Lai Zhangping with a flushed face, "Are all you men this irresponsible? Left me just like that? You quickly tell me you're not like this." Lai Zhangping felt increasingly uneasy, so they began to follow the 3 sisters. But he discovered all 3 sisters' boyfriends are very fat. Every day he kept eating the pork made at his home. Lai Zhangping's mind was in chaos. "The more I think about it, the stranger it seems. My boyfriend keeps getting fatter the more he eats. There will always be an endless supply of pork." At that moment, Lai Zhangping received a call about a bounty, but there was no response on the other end of the phone. Only a few strange sounds could be heard. Then the phone hung up. Lai Zhangping located the position of the head delivery through the phone. So we followed the directions and arrived at a factory on the outskirts. This is actually the factory of the 3 sisters. Lai Zhangping walked to the factory, discovered a pool full of clothes. "I can't believe I found a phone for sending someone's head. Where did the head go?" Suddenly, a sudden sound of pigs squealing caught Lai Zhangping's attention. A tall pigsty appeared before him. He walked into the pig-pen looking for the figure of the head courier. But suddenly a pig stood up, continuously shouting at Lai Zhangping. Lai Zhangping felt very strange. The next moment, the pig surprisingly shed tears. He also showcased the movements of the ottoman. Lai Zhangping quickly thought of, usually, the favorite role is to play the ottoman. Is this pig really a gift for someone? But how did it turn into a pig? The girl understood the conversation between the 2 crows. Then the girl cried as she went home to find her mother. "With tears in my eyes, I said that Grandpa Cheng from next door has passed away." Mom was taken aback after hearing this. Pingbing must not speak carelessly. "I just saw old Cheng a moment ago. This is so unlucky." At that moment, Lai Ping's dad also returned from outside. Mom recounted the situation to Dad. Dad was also very surprised after listening, because Grandpa Cheng loves painting the most on normal days. How could he suddenly say something like that? So I asked Lai Ping how he knew. Lai Ping said he heard it from the crows in the tree. At that moment, suddenly, a person rushed in from outside. This person is Cheng Leitu's son, Cheng Zayadong. Cheng Zayadong entered the door with a crying voice. He choked up and said his father passed away. The sudden bad news left Lai Ping's parents stunned. Old man Cheng passed away too suddenly. What Ping Ping said came true. Comment section for verification based on the book. Send a dog head or tag that unlucky person. Since the two neighbors got along particularly well, so Cheng Zayadong came to ask Lai Ping's father for help. The next day, Lai Ping's family went to pay their respects. Many people came to pay their respects. After the simple worship, Mom took Lai Ping to visit Aunt Cheng. As soon as I entered, I saw a family gathered together. It seems like they are discussing something. It sounds like they are looking for something important. But that thing was put away by old man Cheng. But no matter how hard they searched, they couldn't find it. The brothers from the Cheng family looked particularly anxious. Without that document, the cremation certificate cannot be processed. Lai Ping's father felt he couldn't be of any help. Let's take Lai Ping's mom to the kitchen to help out. I was busy until the afternoon before I sat down to eat. Children don't understand what sadness is. As soon as I see delicious food, I can't help but smile. But as I was eating, it seemed like I saw something terrifying. In an instant, she changed her expression and hid behind her mother. Mom asked what happened. Lai Ping said tremulously, "He saw Grandpa Cheng standing over there." Mom was terrified when she heard that. This is already the second time Lai Ping has said something strange. And it was the first time they experienced the duality. Mom looked in the direction Lai Ping was pointing. But I didn't see old Cheng. Lai Ping's mother was afraid that Lai Ping would say something strange and scare others. They pulled Lai Ping aside. Ask him if he really saw it. Lai Ping said that Grandpa Cheng is over there in the kitchen. Mom isn't sure if it's just psychological. I could really feel the kitchen door move slightly. They pulled Lai Ping towards the kitchen. The two daughters walked hand in hand to the window. Mom looked into the kitchen. But there is nothing inside. Lai Ping also stood on tiptoe to look inside. The result showed a fearful expression again. Lai Ping's mother also noticed it. Just ask him if he has seen Grandpa Cheng. Lai Ping said Grandpa Cheng was standing in front of the table inside the room, staring at the picture frame hanging on the wall. Lai Ping's mother quickly took Lai Ping to find Dad. Lai Ping saw old Cheng staring at the kitchen frame. Dad is a bit skeptical, but Lai Ping's mother kept insisting. Lai Ping's reaction didn't seem like he was lying, so they called the Cheng brothers to search in the kitchen. The two brothers, half in doubt, went to the kitchen to take down the picture frame. Sure enough, what they were looking for was really inside. Inside is a file bag. The bag contains the Cheng family's documents. Cheng Zayadong was overjoyed to find the documents. However, Lai Ping's father felt a trace of fear, because if Lai Ping hadn't really seen old Cheng, how could one possibly know what is hidden behind the picture frame? Don't rent cheap houses carelessly, especially the empty house, because you don't know if there might be some unclean things living inside. My friend Zio Hong encountered a ghostly incident while renting a house. She graduated from university that year but couldn't find a job related to her major. I can only first find a mall promotion to work long hours. But it does not include meals and accommodation. With no other options, Zio Hong could only rent a place nearby. But it is also constrained by economic conditions. So Zio Hong can only rent a private house. Zio Hong contacted a house from a rental advertisement. The landlord is a plump ant. The house is a small two-story building that was self-built. It's that kind of earthen house. Zio Hong rented a first-floor apartment. Ant said the second floor is empty. When Zio Hong first saw the house, she had a strange feeling. Zio Hong thought it was just a matter of getting used to it. Didn't take it too seriously. Zio Hong decided to move away from there. The house doesn't really have any facilities. They are all simple pieces of furniture, but you can move in with just your luggage. But the house might have been empty for quite some time. It has a strong smell of coal inside. You shouldn't be too picky just because it's cheap. However, there's one thing the landlord didn't say wrong. It's very close to the vegetable market. It's very convenient to buy groceries and cook. On her first day after moving, Zio Hong bought some vegetables after work, heading home to prepare a simple meal. Just as Zio Hong was about to open the door, suddenly I heard the sound of footsteps coming from the hallway upstairs. The sound of footsteps is light, like that of a child. Zio Hong thought it was a child playing up there, just glanced up, but there were no children to be seen. Zio Hong thought she had heard it wrong. So he opened the door and entered the room. Just when Zio Hong was chopping vegetables, again I heard the thumping footsteps from the roof above. It's like a child from this end of the room, running to the other end of the room. Zio Hong also thought that the landlord said the place above was empty and unoccupied. Perhaps this is the sound made by cats when they burrow in. But those kinds of houses are not soundproof. Until Zio Hong went to bed at night, the noise upstairs continued incessantly, from hearing the sound to Zio Hong lying down to sleep, at least a few hours. But the child upstairs seems never to get tired, running back and forth all the time. Zio Hong barely fell asleep with a pillow covering her ears. That night could be described as being half asleep and half awake. The noise continued for almost the entire night. When Zio Hong woke up in the morning, her head throbbed as if it would split open. Dark circles have also appeared. So she called the landlord to ask, "Why are there children running around upstairs all night? Didn't they say no one lived upstairs?" The landlord insisted that the upstairs apartment was indeed vacant. They said that Zio Hong is unfortunate, but she can go up and take a look. Then he hung up the phone. Zio Hong is also a person with a temper. Thinking to find out what's going on, I went up to take a look. The staircase to the second floor is made of iron. Stepping on it makes a loud noise. So halfway through, Zio Hong started to hesitate. Because if someone really encounters it, wouldn't it be very awkward? But driven by curiosity, she still wanted to see for herself. So they quietly made their way upstairs. There is a thick layer of dust in the corridor. It seems that no one has come in or out for a long time. Zio Hong didn't know whether to breathe a sigh of relief or feel scared. Because if there's really no one upstairs, what was the sound she heard? Everyone has arrived. Zio Hong could see clearly. There are 2 windows on the second floor. Just a glance made my heart start to feel uneasy, because the lock hanging on the door has rusted, still covered in spider webs. It's clear that it hasn't been opened in a long time. So Zio Hong became more and more afraid. So they hurriedly ran down the stairs. That night, I called a classmate to sleep over with me. His name is Kai. The person is quite tall. The nerves are a bit thick-skinned too. But that night, there was no sound coming from upstairs. But around 9 o'clock in the evening, the noise from upstairs started up again. Kai immediately put her hands on her hips and stood on the bed, shouted a few times at the upstairs. Suddenly, there was no sound at all. but it quickly escalated. Kai thought it was a provocation directed at him, just got out of bed and was about to go upstairs. Zio Hung wanted to stop him, but she couldn't, so I could only follow behind and go upstairs. And that padlock still hung on the door just like during the day. Kiki slammed the door a few times with force. I want to confirm if there's anyone inside. But no one inside responded to him. So he walked again towards the window without curtains. As soon as he took a glance inside, he was met with a tremendous shock. Suddenly recoiled back. Others are tall and strong, adding a guardrail and resting at 9 o'clock in the year. The whole person just fell directly from the second floor. Zio Hong quickly dialed 120. Fortunately, the Kai meat palm is sturdy. Falling from the second floor only gave a scare. I wasn't hurt at all. After his emotions calmed down, Zio Hong asked him what he was afraid of. Because of Zio Hong's understanding of him, ordinary things cannot scare him. Unexpectedly, mentioning Kiki's name made her expression a bit unpleasant. He said when he looked inside the window, the child's face was looking at him through the window. After hearing him finish, Zio Hong's body was covered in goosebumps. After that incident, Zio Hong moved out of her dormitory to live with Kai. Fortunately, nothing unfortunate happened to them. But if you live there for a long time, it might not be the same. After finishing this story, do you still dare to easily rent a cheap apartment? This is a true supernatural event that happened in Chongqing. A critically ill woman discovers that a shadow is putting red shoes on her at night. He also said to let her dress up nicely and set off early. I didn't expect the person to suddenly enter from outside the ward. This is the shocking nationwide incident of the Chongqing ghost wearing shoes. The story takes place in 1990 at the 8th Health Hospital in Yuzhong District, Chongqing. Zio Mei was hospitalized due to a cold. At that time, the illness was very severe. The doctor even issued a critically ill notice to Zio Mei's husband, Lai Zhangping. That night, Zio Mei was sleeping drowsily. Suddenly felt someone touching my foot. She looked up in astonishment. A tall black shadow stood at the foot of the bed, and she was holding a pair of bright red shoes, trying to put them on her. Zio Mei was terrified to the extreme. She watched as the shadow slipped the shoe onto her toes. Only then did I realize and started kicking my legs desperately. But that shadow urged her to quickly put on these red shoes. It is said at once dressed well, one is ready to set off. Zio Mei was originally weak. The shadow slipped the shoe covers onto her feet. Zio Mei stared in shock, her mouth agape. But strangely, no sound could be produced at all. It felt as though an invisible force was choking her throat. At that moment, a person suddenly walked into the hospital room. That was an old man in his 70s living in the next ward. She stepped forward and told the shadow not to torment Zio Mei, put the shoes on her. With that, the shadow followed the old man out the door. Before leaving, the old man told Zio Mei, "You are still young. Live well from now on. I am an old man with no burdens. I should be the one to leave." Strangely, the old man and that dark figure had just left. Zio Mei suddenly sat up. "And you won't feel the pain of the illness." The next day, she told her husband Lai Zhangping about the matter. But Lai Zhangping still thought his wife wasn't very ill. But she hurried back as soon as she stepped out and spoke incoherently. The old man living next door passed away last night. Zio Mei was utterly shocked after hearing this. If everything that happened last night was a nightmare, this dream feels too real. But if that is real yet somewhat strange, the eerie experience left both of them feeling uneasy. Not long after this event, Xiaomei's condition gradually improved. Soon they were discharged from the hospital. Chapter 26. Da Zhang Fu keeps his promises. This 800-pound king pig not only eats a lot, but also breeds prolifically. Old Lai successfully squeezed into the top 10 of the village's good list. He promised to take care of him until he dies. But after a few years, the pig king could no longer reproduce. But the appetite remains as strong as ever. So old Lai ruthlessly sold him to a wealthy merchant. Even when catching the pig, the king pig fought back fiercely. Several strong men couldn't manage to capture him, and then it crashed into the courtyard wall and escaped to the mountain. Once they reached the mountains, they begged for mountain delicacies to eat. 100 years later, it actually came to fruition. To seek revenge, he found the descendants of old Lai. That day, Lai Zhongping's family was having dinner. Suddenly, a few burly men kicked open the door and barged in. The pig-headed person in charge claims to be here to collect a debt. Lai Zhongping thought he had found the wrong person and told them, "I collected the debt from Lai Fugui." Zhongping's father said that was their ancestor. Lai Zhongping felt that person was a rogue, grabbed the kitchen knife and fight them to the death. As a result, they were caught by that group and beaten up. The whole family has been controlled by them. The leader said they would stay at Lai Zhongping's house for 3 years. Only after 3 years of good food and drink hospitality can it be considered complete. From that day on, the Lai family prepared a table full of vegetarian dishes for him every day. But even a vegetarian meal is quite impressive in size. And then sleep after eating well. Get some good sleep and then go out for a stroll. Lai Zhongping told the old smoker about the situation. "Don't cry just yet. I'll come to ask you." He closed his eyes and made a video call to Situ. "You know this already, right? That guy isn't wrong either. This is him collecting the debts owed by the Lai family. In the early years, Lai Fugui was a pork vendor. While producing and selling by oneself, it is also about personally opening a hall. His family's business was the best in the entire market. But this is also thanks to the breeding pig at home. But Lai Fugui just promised to support him for life. Not long after, it was sold to others. Now, turning into a willful reward, it is also within my full effort. There must be a way to solve this right. This smoke is not difficult. You touch it casually, then touch it again." The old smoker waited until night, as the tough guy said. Then the pig king pushed open the door of Lai Zhongping's house again. Then he cursed loudly, saying he would cut off the Lai family's lineage. With no response inside the building, he instructed his men to go in and take a look. As soon as he entered, he was thrown out. What came out was actually a giant bear. "Are you the helper hired by the Lai family?" "I'm your grandpa," just as both sides were about to fight. "Don't mess around. Let him in." Zhu Wang angrily stormed into the house. But the table full of dishes in front of him only made him more furious. But looking at the old man sitting on the kang and the items arranged around him, Zhu Wang controlled himself. "Old man, I see you're tired of living. Today I'll hold a wedding for you, even though I eat vegetarian every day." Zhu Wang can no longer tolerate it and is about to take action. "I'm not afraid of you. Hu Santai is my brother. The third young master is the tutor I invited. There are also 2 household guardians at home." Upon hearing this, the pig king felt a bit intimidated. So the old smoker had someone set up a table of vegetarian dishes for him to sit down and talk. Only see the Lai family has completed. The vegetarian dishes were served. Lai Zhongping trembled in fear. "Let me mediate this for you. Talk about the wine on this path. His ancestors also raised you for decades. You have also received your chance. Isn't soldiering also a form of cultivation? But he doesn't even acknowledge the old smoker's status. It is said that misfortune does not affect one's descendants. Let his family set up a generational shrine for you. That's not too cheap for them. This won't do. In that case, I'll invite Nasdersen to arbitrate. Zhu Wang knew he wasn't a match for the villain and had no choice but to agree. Later, Lai Zhangping set up the altar for the Pig King at home. Zhu Wan brought people back home. Once they reached the mountains, they never came back down. Chapter 27. The consequences of not listening to the advice of elders. The women in this village die in a swift wind as soon as they become pregnant. Will kill the husband. As a result, the women in the village began to move to other villages to give birth. He, a lion, believes every day that her husband is superstitious. I must go back to the village to visit my old father. Little did they know they were about to pay a painful price for their stubbornness. You should pay attention to the comments section. 8 Dulabian or dog head is respectable. As soon as he got home, his father with a grim face reproached his son for not listening to advice. She caught a glimpse and saw her daughter-in-law's face was full of exhaustion. So they had to invite the two inside to eat. A lion, heavily pregnant, couldn't help at all. Sitting alone in the hall watching TV. Unexpectedly, this matter suddenly stirred into action. This fetal movement is actually normal. But she could clearly feel that the baby in her belly seemed to be frightened. So she timidly looked around. When it fell to the window at that time, she suddenly saw a dark shadow staring intently at her. She suddenly screamed in fear, suddenly collapsed to the ground. Fortunately, the husband who heard the sound arrived just in time. Quickly help her up, but she looked as pale as death, pointing incoherently out the window. When the husband looked in that direction, he found nothing, while her husband was still comforting her that it was just an illusion. The old man solemnly handed over a peach wood talisman. It is said to ward off evil and dispel demons. Listen for a moment. She also knows that the village is not simple, so I obediently put it away. Then she went into the bedroom to sleep under her husband's shirt. A lion was woken up in the middle of the night by the urge to urinate. She originally wanted to bring her husband along, but seeing her sleeping so peacefully, I couldn't bear to wake her. So I could only grit my teeth and set off alone with the talisman. Unexpectedly, the thing I tripped over fell to the ground. This fall isn't serious, but the amulet in hand has disappeared. In an instant, she felt a chill run down her spine. She found nothing around her that could trip her up, unless it was just a shadow. This made her think more and more fearfully, so desperately groping on the ground. I hope we can find the talisman soon. But suddenly a strange laugh interrupted her. A dark figure was crawling towards her from the front. Only after that shadow slowly approached did they realize it was actually a toddler. The baby crawled while calling out for mummy. At this moment, a lion was already so frightened that her legs felt weak. Unconsciously retreated to the wall corner. She wanted to scream for help, but my throat felt as if something was blocking it. Can only emit a hoarse bass sound. Suddenly, a mysterious force controlled her legs, slowly spreading them apart. And this strange shadow mirror directly burrowed in. A lion instantly felt a sharp pain in her stomach, as if pierced by a blade. Not only is it hard to breathe, but my vision is also gradually becoming blurry. She instinctively fumbled with her hands. At that moment, they caught a cup. So I summoned my last bit of strength. After throwing the cup, he lost consciousness. When the husband arrived at the sound, the scene before her made her hands and feet go numb with fear. I saw my wife standing disheveled in the corner. I unknowingly ended up with a kitchen knife in my hand. She didn't dare to get too close, nervously persuading his wife to put down the kitchen knife. But the wife seemed to turn a blind eye. He charged at her with a kitchen knife raised. She quickly stepped back when she sensed something was off. Didn't want my wife to be quiet, rushed in front of her. She could only catch it with her hands, having nowhere else to escape. But in that moment of receiving it, she felt despair. This force is as strong as an ox. She could only follow the force and fall backward. When she stood up, she realized her shoulder had been struck. I never expected that at this moment my wife was still attacking relentlessly. Instead, they picked up the kitchen knife and chopped down more fiercely. At this moment, the elder arrived just in time. Seeing this situation, he quickly went to find the talisman. Fortunately, the talisman had fallen just behind him. He quickly tied the talisman around Xerxes' neck. The son seized the opportunity and snatched the knife away, and the woman collapsed at that moment. The originally bright red eyes slowly closed, as if he had fallen asleep, just as the father and son slowly let down their guard, but twisted his neck at an incredible angle. Seeing him plan to end his own life this way, the husband quickly held his head tightly, not allowing him to twist. The old man quickly went to get the rope. Finally, the father and son worked together to tightly tie the woman to a chair. At this point, the woman became much more obedient, but it never managed to drive away the evil entity within her. So the two of them decided to invite Lu Jiu Zion. Lu Jiu Zion was well known in the village as a notorious drunkard. He is also the village guardian. But after dying from drunkenness, I suddenly came back to life 15 days later. From then on, they gained a supernatural ability to ward off evil. The more he drinks, the stronger he becomes. Thus, he earned the elegant title of Lu Jiu Zion. Before long, the elder brought Lu Jiu Zion into the house. He glanced at a lion's situation and found it nothing unusual. He picked up a bottle of 50, 3-degree erguatu and drank it in one go. After finishing the drink, his originally lazy gaze suddenly became much more alert. He immediately pointed at a lion and scolded her, hearing his voice. Onlookers were also taken aback, because that voice sounded like Lu Dongbin from the Eight Immortals. From his words, the man finally understood the reason his wife had gone mad. It turns out the village has always favored boys over girls. So the girls born will be drowned and their bodies discarded in the wilderness. Over time, resentment builds up. Thus, it forcibly severed the village's vocal cords. After waiting for the speech to finish, Lu Jiu Zion took out 2 copper coins from his pocket, then spat out a stream of white liquid. Moreover, as he thought about it, the 2 copper coins actually caught fire. Then placed the coins into a lion's palms. Suddenly, a lion's palm emitted 2 streams of black smoke. At this moment, the evil entity within a lion knew its end was near, and began to make the final struggle, to the point where his entire face was distorted and deformed. Lu Jiu Zion remained calm and composed. Silently, he took out a copper coin. Then he gently tapped the copper coin on a lion's forehead. This made a lion suddenly quiet down. Then the husband caught a strong fishy smell. Suddenly, a large amount of black blood flowed from a lion's lower body. Lu Jiu Zion saw the black blood and knew that an evil being had emerged, and then took the copper coins from his hand. Strangely, there were no burn marks on a lion's palms. After a moment, a lion's expression eased. The eyes also slightly opened. But there is no memory of everything that just happened. Only after mixing with half-glutinous rice can it be buried in the soil. The next day, the man took his wife for a check-up. Fortunately, the fetus is unharmed, but he did not know that his wife was actually carrying a ghost child. Have you heard about the shocking Tianjin Seven Fairies case? A female student sacrifices herself for love. Afraid of loneliness, I gathered 6 fellow photographers. Ning Chu sat in the comments section. The dog head or the honest person is respectable. The story takes place in a Tianjin middle school in 1998. That day, many police cars arrived at the school because a shocking murder case occurred here. The police arrived at the girls' dormitory and smelled a pungent odor. After opening the dormitory door, the officer was instantly stunned. All 7 girls in the dormitory were found murdered, lying on their own beds in different positions. Vomit and feces covered the entire bed. It seems that they all endured immense pain before their deaths. There are still some uneaten apples on the table. 7 bodies were carried out one after another. As for the cause of death of these girls, everyone started discussing it all at once. After investigation, a total of 7 girls were murdered. All died within a short period. There were no cries for help heard from the surrounding dormitories. This is precisely what confuses the police. Later, the autopsy report revealed, these girls have taken a type of pesticide. It only takes a few minutes to prevent. But strangely, after they had ingested the pesticide, they still ate apples. The case became confusing in an instant. The police hypothesized a possibility. That's collective suicide. But I can't find a reason to commit suicide. Later, the police investigated the dormitory, which was an 8-person room. The breakthrough in the case also appeared with the 8th person. Soon, the police found Xiao Mei, but she seemed well prepared for the police's questioning. After an overnight interrogation, Xiao Mei said that all of this was suggested by her roommate Xiao Liu. The officers were immediately taken aback, because there are Xiao Mei's fingerprints on the cup at the scene. Her fingerprints are also on the fruit knife. She has even personally gone to the store to buy pesticides. However, Xiao Mei insisted that it was all Xiao Liu's doing. It turns out that my roommate, Xiao Liu, had thoughts of ending his life due to a breakup. So she begged Xiao Mei to help her buy a bottle of pesticide. But unexpectedly, after buying the pesticide, Xiao Liu is afraid of being alone again. Let the other 6 people in the dorm die with her. That night, Xiao Mei followed Xiao Liu's request, prepared 7 cups of pesticide for everyone to share. And so, the 7 of them simultaneously drank the pesticide. But due to the pain after taking the medication, Xiao Mei was peeling fruit for them to eat, to alleviate their suffering. Soon, 7 lives withered away just like that, and Xiao Mei stayed there with them all night. Not until the next morning did they leave. Regarding what Xiao Mei said, the police confirmed it with Xiao Liu's boyfriend. The two have indeed just broken up. But Xiao Mei was involved in the entire process of the poisoning murder. In the end, she received the punishment she deserved. Clearly, they have a bright future ahead. But it was only because of a roommate's troubled thoughts that a life was lost. Every 3 years, a mysterious death occurs in the man's house. Later, the family started to feel that something was off. So they called in Master Jiu, the heir of the Maotian tradition, to take a look. Jiu Shu arrived at the man's house and said nothing. First, I took a look around the yard. Then he entered the room and took out a brass plate to calculate. After waiting for a long time, Uncle Jiu still didn't say anything. This made the old man doubt the abilities of Jiu Shu. So it went on calculating all morning. Jiu Shu finally stopped in the main hall. Then he said there was no problem with the man's house. The grave is also well buried. The problem lies elsewhere. The old man couldn't hold his composure any longer. afraid that their own family's matters would be exposed. But Uncle Jew had the old man misled a bit, said they have found the key to the problem. Then Uncle Jew asked when he returned to the inner room, "Is there an elderly person in your family who is particularly old?" But for this question the two elderly men racked their brains for half a day, couldn't recall that there was such a person. At that moment a man's little uncle suddenly remembered. There is a distant grandaunt who is very old. The old couple also realized at this moment. There is indeed a relative in our family. However, due to the long-standing conflicts, we haven't been in touch for many years. Uncle G was surprised to find out that it was true. Immediately asked the elderly couple if they have any blood relation to that old lady. The old man reminisced for a moment. That old lady is the elder sister of her deceased father. It's just one's own aunt. There is definitely a blood relationship. Just because of conflicts, we haven't moved for decades. I almost forgot. Uncle Jai's reminder. The old man also felt that the old lady seemed quite ruthless, because the old lady comes back once every 3 years, and also not going anywhere, just going to their old house. Hearing this, Jiu-Shu seemed to understand as well. So they suggested going to the old lady's old house to take a look. After arriving at the old house, that house looks like it's about to collapse. The floor was covered in dust. At that moment, Uncle Jiu followed the direction of the compass. He discovered that the ground in front of him seemed to have been dug up. He quickly instructed the old man to find tools to dig up that piece of land. When it was dug open, a black jar covered with a red cloth suddenly appeared before everyone. Jiu-Shu carried the jar out of the pit, gazed with a serious expression for a long time. After lifting the red cloth, a few walnuts were revealed inside the jar. The color of the walnuts clearly indicates that they were not placed in at the same time, because some things still seem very fresh. Some have already rotted and turned black. Jiu-Shu took out a peach jar and couldn't help but gasp, because he has already realized that this is a kind of dark magic, the art of reviving life with immortal peaches. This is a dark magic that extends one's life by using the lifespan of younger ones through their blood. Looking at the two people in shock, Uncle Jiu continued to explain. The longer one lives, the more afraid they become of death, and the peach pot in my hand was buried here by the old lady for a ritual. The old lady must have another one with her. It says the name and birth date of the younger generation of Zuking. Each time a blood relative is killed, it can extend one's life by 3 years. At the same time, the old lady died after being struck by dark magic when she dug into the jar. It is said that when one dies, their skin shrivels up. It felt as if all the life was suddenly drained from my body. The third truth, hewing a ghost pass. This is a folk story from Shandong that even walking into science dares not report. Ignorant villagers dug out a coffin in the Yellow River bed. Unexpectedly, a few days later, it resulted in the mysterious deaths of hundreds of villagers. This is the nationally sensational Hewing Ghost Pass incident. The level of strangeness may exceed your understanding. I suggest tagging your friends to watch together. The story takes place on the banks of the Yellow River in the 1980s. It was the annual dry season of the Yellow River. The government organized nearby villagers to carry out silt cleaning work in the Yellow River's channel. This midday, 2 women are carrying the prepared food towards the banks of the Yellow River. The 2 just arrived at the dam. I saw a strange scene. Dozens of men clearing sediment in the river suddenly stopped their work. They all looked up to the sky and shouted loudly. The 2 were taken aback in shock. I can't understand what happened to these men, but it's strange to say. Before long, those people began the work of clearing the sludge again, as if everything that just happened had never occurred. By the time lunch arrived, the men all stopped their work and came to the den to rest. One of the women delivering food found the previous scene quite strange. She asked her man about what had just happened. "I didn't expect that everyone had completely forgotten about what just happened." The woman found it very strange, because this matter was seen by more than just myself. It's impossible to be mistaken. At that moment, a villager left behind by the river hurriedly ran over. They said something strange was dug out of the river. Everyone put down their bowls and chopsticks and came to the river bank. But the next scene astonished everyone. Several remaining villagers were digging up a huge rectangular transparent object in the riverbed. Everyone take a close look. It turned out to be a transparent coffin, and there was a dark shadow inside. Everyone immediately became interested in this strange object. They stopped eating and began to dig. Soon more than half of the coffin was dug out. The deeper they dug, the more surprised everyone became, because there was actually a huge coffin bed beneath the coffin. Everyone stared at the coffin for a long time. The coffin seems to be one piece. There is absolutely no gap at all. Surprisingly, there were many small fish swimming in the coffin. How did these little fish get in here? Just as the villagers were at a loss for what to do, village chief Wenzun rushed over with a large group of people. After a brief understanding of the events, he called everyone to start digging. No matter how they dig, that large coffin remained completely still. At that moment, a yin-yang master in the village hurriedly stopped everyone. According to him, this is the Dragon Gate in the Yellow River. What lies beneath is the Longden. Once the Dragon Gate is opened, the consequences will be unimaginable. The eager village chief couldn't care less about these things. He quickly rallied everyone to continue digging the coffin to achieve merit. The yin-yang master saw this and felt helpless. Just before leaving, he urged all the villagers present, the mouse dragons and mouse snakes, to hurry and leave. Otherwise, it will be countered by the energy of the fate mouse. The yin-yang master has been in the village for many years. The methods are very sophisticated. Many people respect his choice to leave. But still, many people stayed with the village chief. The transparent sarcophagus looks just like a chunk of stone. No matter how much others dig, it cannot be shaken even a bit. The sky was slowly turning dark. Everyone could only pack up their tools and go home. Wait until the next day to call some people over to help. The village chief feared someone would have ulterior motives. Deliberately left a few people guarding by the river. That night, those who stayed behind heard strange howling sounds coming from the direction of the Yellow River. The next morning, something indeed went wrong. A middle-aged woman hurriedly knocked on the door of the fortune teller's house. The woman is the village chief's wife. She said the village chief suddenly fell ill last night, now completely unconscious. The village chief's mouse symbol is a snake. At this moment, more and more people began to arrive. It turns out that several villagers who stayed behind yesterday have experienced this situation. The yin-yang master knew this was caused by the disturbance at Dragon Gate yesterday. Quickly, he brought everyone to the river bank. But when a group of people arrived at the river bank, they found that someone had already been there. At this moment, he was touching and wiping the stone coffin. Clearly, it is necessary to continue digging. The yin-yang master is deeply concerned about people's hearts. Hurriedly shouted to stop these people. To everyone's surprise, the leading expert stated that he represented the government. They don't believe in such feudal superstitions at all. The strong villagers who came together could only return to the village helplessly. The yin-yang master squatted by the shore. With mixed emotions, I looked at those experts. Soon the archaeological team brought in large machinery to pull up the transparent sarcophagus. However, shortly after the sarcophagus was moved, a massive jet of water suddenly erupted from beneath the coffin, instantly filled the entire riverbed. But the archaeologists who were digging the coffin bed, in the blink of an eye, they were swept away by the rushing waters and vanished. That year, the sudden arrival of the Yellow River swept away many serious and melancholic people. The villagers who participated in the excavation of the mouse elephant all mysteriously died. This incident caused a huge uproar nationwide at the time. Various rumors began to spread, but no one can truly explain the suspense within, and that stone coffin has become an unsolved mystery. Episode 31. The Yangtze River runs dry. Have you heard about the 1954 Yangtze River event? It is said that the water stoppage lasted nearly 3 hours. The Yangtze River originates from the Tibetan Plateau, mainly formed by melting snow from the mountains. This interruption of flow is indeed hard to understand. Today, let's talk about this story. On January 13, 1954, Old Man Wang, who lives in Wukon, Taixing City, Jiangsu Province, working in the fields. But today something feels off. He stopped his work and looked around, but nothing unusual was found. As he began to plant the seedlings again, suddenly a flash of lightning crossed his mind. It is the sound of the Yangtze River flowing. The Yangtze River, which used to roar with a thunderous sound every day. Why is there no sound today? So he quickly climbed up the embankment to take a look. This glance is nothing to worry about. The scene before him left him in shock. The originally turbulent waters of the Yangtze River have surprisingly disappeared. Only countless fish and shrimp struggle and leap in the mud. The scene before my eyes. It reminded Old Man Wang of something the villagers discussed this morning. It turns out that when he went out to work in the fields that morning, encountering villagers in casual conversation, later I found out. It turns out the entire village residents have experienced sleep paralysis. Even Wang Leihan is no exception. Looking at the dry Yangtze River before me, Old Wang wondered if this was the outcome of fate. Before he could figure it out, a group of villagers arrived at the riverbed in full force. In the 1950s, people were still very poor. The fish and shrimp stranded at the riverbed are a great temptation for the villagers. Old Wang looked at the excited crowd, feeling a sense of foreboding in his heart. But I can't quite say. At that moment, Wang Leihan's son also ran over with a wooden bucket. Old Wang quickly grabbed his son's arm and said to him, listening to the elders tell stories, the Yangtze River experienced a disruption in flow over 600 years ago. That time, the people along the riverbanks did not know how many had died in the river. In the past, I used to think of this legend as just a story. But now it seems that was not a story. Stop looking, let's go home. On the way home, I saw people reaping a bountiful harvest. The son couldn't help but feel a bit frustrated. The more I walk along the dam toward home, the son became increasingly convinced by Wang Leihan's words. Because the riverbed was continuously covered by the Yangtze River water. At this moment, it appeared before my eyes without any concealment. The bottom of the Yangtze River, unseen by people for tens of thousands of years. There are too many things that are hard to think about. There are too many unimaginable things. No one knows what those are. I don't know why they exist. Just as the two reached the end of the dam, suddenly distant sounds like muffled thunder echoed. The earth is also present.